It has been hot here in the southwestern United States. So hot, in fact, it looks like this. Kind of looks like something that's kind of burning on the stove. Definitely wouldn't want to eat whatever's in this sort of dark area, as you can see. Unfortunately for me, I happen to live sort of right here, right there in the middle, and it feels sort of about what it looks like. It's hot. It is June 21st as the day that we're recording this video. And, typically, I don't talk about the weather on this show. But this is important because we're talking about some very, very problematic implications of a very hot summer in something that's called a heat dome in conjunction with people crossing the border. And there are now images that are coming out about people just sort of slamming themselves, packing themselves in U-Hauls and different conveyances to try to get across the border. We have governors now who are actually taking steps into taking action. They are trying to resolve this because they are recognizing that the federal government has dropped the ball at every level. Kamala Harris just went down to Guatemala and then over to Mexico, and she told a bunch of people, don't come to the United States. We're going to see if that was effective or not. But the point here is that Arizona and the southwestern United States are going through something right now, and it's kind of a weird thing. I've lived here my whole life, and you'll notice that some of the temperatures are wild. We've got Salt Lake City 107, we have Vegas 116, and we had, let's see, on Thursday about 6 p.m., Death Valley got to 128 degrees. Okay, 128. Phoenix was close by at 118. And in fact, it was so hot that it actually fried the air conditioning unit down at my Studio B. So I'm here today. And, last week, the hard drive at this studio failed. So I was recording from the other one. Then the air conditioning failed at that studio. So now I'm back here. I fixed the hard drive this weekend. So we're back in business. But my point is, it's like actually, causing a lot of problems for people. And I know that this is sort of minor compared to some of the other catastrophes that we've seen out there. Houses are not getting burned down. We do have a lot of wildfires that are spreading around the area, but it's really hot, right? People are not freezing to death. There are people, though, as we're going to see, who are actually being hospitalized as a result of this, right? They are putting themselves, subjecting themselves to temperatures over 110 degrees. 123 degrees in some places. And so I've lived here my whole life, never quite heard about a heat dome, but I want to show you what this looks like. So this is a heat dome. Apparently, this is the thing. As the ground warms, you're going to see the ground loses moisture. So what that means is that it is easily heated. So then it causes sort of a rise in some of the air. Then you have a high pressure system which pushes the warm air down. And so if you look at this, it kind of looks like a convection oven, doesn't it? And it sort of feels like that around here. Well, the people who are coming across the border, they're going through all of that, right? So I'm sitting here, in an office that has air conditioning. I'm doing okay. There are, by last count, last month, 180,000 people who came across. We talked about those statistics here. This month, we're going to see if those numbers dip. They certainly will. And we said this before. They are going to dip because it heats up. And the administration is going to come back, of course, and say, oh, look what Kamala did. She solved the problem because the numbers are down. Yeah, right. They go down because it gets hot. But that doesn't stop what we're about to see. The Sun came out and said, close to death. Shock. Pics show 33 illegal immigrants crammed into a U-Haul in Texas in temperatures that are 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Trump blasts the border crisis, of course. So remember, this article came out June 17th. This was before the heat dome, and this was from about a week before that. So let's take a look. We're going to see what's going on here. At least a dozen people were actually hospitalized with heat-related illnesses. Agents revealed the group was close to perishing due to excessive heat and a lack of fresh air. Okay, so these are people who are literally going to be dying. Now, this is, look, these are people that we find at the border. They came to the border. They made it. Border Patrol says, oh, my God, we got to get you people to a hospital. You're going to kill yourselves. And they're like dying right in front of them because they made it here. How many of these U-Hauls don't make it? How many of these coyotes, do something down there and we never hear about it? Gonna guess it's not insignificant. Border Protection said here in a statement that they acted on a tip of a suspicious activity near a McDonald's. Agents approached a Dodge Journey in a U-Haul truck. They freed 33 people from inside the vehicle. 12 patients were transported at regional hospitals. Others were treated for symptoms of dehydration. No casualties, thank God. Had our heroic agents not been able to free these trapped undocumented migrants, we could have seen 33 miserable deaths in this event. Right? Easily. You'll see. Smugglers do not care what type of misery they put people through as they take their money. Homeland Security is now working to identify the smugglers. Good luck. It's not clear where the migrants are being kept or where they're originally from. Agents have not said when it is they believe they entered the country. It comes as 27 migrants were found crammed inside another U-Haul truck during a traffic stop near Laredo. Agents said the temperature inside the cargo compartment was a sweltering 106, which is actually, quite reasonable. When I get in my car, it's 120 something, 100 easily, no problem. So they must have had some sort of, some sort of solution in there. Let's take a look. It says they were all placed under arrest along with driver and passenger. Though human smugglers may try different ways to avoid detection, we're going to find them. Joe Biden administration has been blasted for huge spikes in migrants illegally crossing the border since he took office. Data has shown tens of thousands made the journey in April and May compared to less than 100 who crossed in the last month of Donald Trump's presidency. So it was significantly more than that. I think in May it was 180,000. Yeah, in May. We talked about it. It was a story on the show. 180,000 people coming across. Trump blasted Biden on the border on Wednesday. He claimed that death and criminals are pouring into our country. He says, I think the reason. Okay. He goes on. He was on Sean Hannity's show. He announced on Tuesday a surprise trip to the border. Republicans are slamming Vice President Kamala Harris for failing to visit the border, even though she's been put in charge of it from Joe Biden, and I've confirmed that 4 times. So let's take a look at what they're seeing inside the U-Haul. So there we've got sort of a laser temperature gauge. It says temperature reached at least 106 in there. A lot of water and sort of, some hydration. We'll see what's going on. We've got pictures of the inside of it. Harris embarked on her first trip. It was unequivocal. We've got some other people, some border, we're going to get there. All right. So I want to point this out, right? We've got Kamala Harris now. She was just down there. Went down to solve this problem once and for all. So she went down to Guatemala and then wagged her finger in the Guatemalans' face and said, hey, keep your problems down here in Guatemala. We don't want to deal with you people down in the United States, even though when she was running for vice president, you get the same difference. She was saying things like, oh, anything that Donald Trump does is racist. It's inhumane. We're a country of immigrants, and we're going to accept everybody. Then she flies down there as soon as she's elected, says, do not come. So she tells them, do not come. Do not migrate to the United States. And look, let's take a quick look at what date this was. June 7th, this was updated. All right, so it was about that time. She called on robust talks with Guatemalan president. All right, so on June 7th, Kamala Harris, do not come. She said something like, if you come, I believe you'll be turned away at the border, right? So she didn't actually change a policy. She's like, well, I believe. Well, okay, you're the vice president. What did you tell the Border Patrol? Do they believe, or what are we talking about here? So she says on June 7th, do not come. Guess what happens on June 10th? Well, we got a whole U-Haul full of people coming in. Now, the reason I'm showing you this picture, so you can see what I'm talking about. Their images, their faces are all blurred out. Everything is being protected for their privacy, okay? The point of it is, this is what's happening. And this is not happening because of climate change, right? Kamala Harris went down there and said, well, we've got to address the root causes of economic, whatever. This is happening because her administration has made a very, very strong policy change saying that you can come into the you can make your move here and you can wait in the United States. Donald Trump was remain in Mexico. You can come and apply for asylum, but you can't come across the border. They changed that because the last we heard, that was a very racist, xenophobic thing that Donald Trump did. So that policy changes. Suddenly there's a floodgate of everybody wants to come across the border because the Biden administration in the months leading up to the election said essentially you're welcome here in different words. And then as soon as they got into office, they actually changed the policies that orchestrated the momentum shift. Now they're trying to clean up the mess. Kamala Harris walks down there to Guatemala and says, don't come. 3 days later, U-Haul full of people coming. So what's going to happen? Why are they coming? I thought that they listened to her. I thought that the Queen, Kamala Harris, the border czar, who was put in charge of this by Joe Biden, was going to solve this problem. Are you telling me that she went down there and gave a speech and that everybody just didn't bow to her and say, oh, got it. Thanks, Kamala. Thanks for telling us not to come. I guess you're right. We're going to stay right where we are. Thank you. No, her and Joe Biden have the exact power to change some of these policies, but they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it because we've got some American people here who say, well, those policies are racist, and they don't necessarily know. This is what happens when you have these policies. This is exactly what happens. You are causing people to put themselves in harm's way and kill themselves. in order to get here, because they have this belief based on your own stinking statements and your own administration's actual policies that are causing them to come. And you're going to just say that this is a humanitarian thing. Here's another 27 migrants, right? All filled up in the back of a U-Haul in Texas. We've got this one over here. Here's another one crammed in to the back of a flatbed. Folks, it's look, that is what this administration is causing to happen. It's been going on for a long time. I'm not saying they started it, but they are causing it. And look, it's awful what's happening. Look at this. It makes you sick. These are human beings. These are people who are cramming themselves in, and they're getting taken advantage of, and they're coming across the border because they don't want racist policies. They don't want racist immigration policies. So instead, they're just going to create policies that just force, that are incentivizing people to do this to themselves. Oh my gosh, it's so insane that we're living in this world, but that's what our administration is doing right now. Great. All right. So anyways, look, if you're not really concerned about the migrants, if you look at that flatbed of people cramming themselves into the back of a flatbed, and that doesn't make your heart churn, you're like, oh, well, those are just immigrants, whatever. If you're somebody who says, well, we want more of that, so I support Biden's policies, I support Kamala's policies, because I don't care about that. As long as that keeps happening and we're not implementing racist policies, and you can feel good about yourself, if that doesn't bother you at all, how about this? How about the fentanyl that they're bringing across the border? And not the people who want to come and immigrate here to work here and put themselves in the back of a flatbed to be a part of America. I'm talking about the people who are exploiting everybody else, exploiting the border to traffic 300% higher yields of fentanyl coming across the border, as we are seeing right now. According to Adam Shaw over at Fox News, apprehensions of fentanyl at the border were nearly 300% higher than last year. Numbers come from May. Another indicator of a continued crisis at the border. 951 pounds of the deadly drug, which can be fatal in tiny amounts, they were seized at the border in May. Highest amount seized since December 2020, a slight increase over April. However, it is another month that is significantly higher than the amount seized compared to the same time last year. In May 2020, 240 pounds. This year, 7,450 pounds of fentanyl, dwarfing what was apprehended in the entirety of last year. So about 7,500 pounds this year, fiscal year 2021. Last year, only 4,700 pounds. Okay, fentanyl is so deadly, folks. Okay, I meet with a men's group. We talk 12 steps, we talk recovery all the time, and this is a dangerous molecule. I'm not seeing people come back to meetings again after playing around with this molecule. It's not a good one. Coming across 300% higher than last time. And guess what? Guess where those drugs are going? Well, it's just ripping through the U.S. workforce, just killing people all over the place. So here from the Portland Press Herald, it says opioids are behind about 3/4 of the overdoses, according to Wednesday's data from the U.S. CDC. CDC comes out and they say, hey, before COVID-19, before that pandemic, there was the drug epidemic. Relentless toll added 90,000, almost 91,000 deaths in the U.S. through the year 2020, November 2020. A grim number obscured by the 600,000 COVID deaths. After the virus transfixed the nation, drug crisis spread to largely untouched parts of the country, exacerbated by the recessions and the millions of job losses. Not only stores and restaurants shuttered, counseling services, they went online. Inpatient clinics closed, mobile clinics pulled back. AA meetings went online. All of the sort of the 12-step recovery work that was taking place day in and day out on all the different churches and meeting forums, meeting halls throughout the country, all just kind of came to a screeching halt. We took our men's group online ourselves, right? We do Zooms now because we have some elderly people in it. So it's happening all across the country, and people are relapsing and dying. Before the pandemic, U.S. unemployment hit a century low of 3.5%. Now, almost 8 million people not on payrolls. Joe Biden administration, they're seeking full employment, but the goal is going to be daunted as we can confront a workforce more addicted than ever. This stuff just keeps spiraling. People are we had a public health crisis that then created a mental health crisis, and we're going to be dealing with that for a very long time. Now, the governors, as I mentioned, they're doing stuff about this. So Governor Abbott, Greg Abbott, over from Texas, came out and says that they are going to make a $250 million down payment for the border wall. Adam Shaw over at Fox News wrote this. He accused the Biden administration of abandoning its responsibility. He says Texas now is going to build a border wall in our state to secure the border. $250 million down payment going to begin the project, allowing the state to hire a project manager, get the task underway. He said it would be built on a combination of state land and donations of private land, partly funded by donations. He says, my belief based on the conversations I've already had, a lot of support to do this. We're going to have volunteer land. It's going to yield hundreds of miles to build a wall in the state of Texas. Dallas reported that the down payment will come from the state's Department of Criminal Justice. Okay, right? It's like, hey, if they're bringing fentanyl over and you've got huge bloated law enforcement budgets for the drug war, well, okay, go use that at the source then. Why are you stopping little Johnny for, having some marijuana on him, whereas you could just go find the real people who are bringing the bad drugs into the country if you want to go fight that drug war, rather than stopping people for traffic tickets. Might be a better use of law enforcement money. Now we also have DeSantis who's jumping into the fray. DeSantis is sort of out there just swinging for the fences. He says he's also going to send Florida police officers over to help Texas and Arizona. So not a lot of specifics here, but we'll see. Says he's going to send them over. Made the announcement during a news conference in Pensacola. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey sent a letter last week to governors of the other 48 states requesting assistance in battling illegal immigration at the border with Mexico. So our own governor saying, hey, please help us. Okay. Federal government. Hello. Okay. Can anyone else help us here? Details on the number of officers that will be deployed and where they're going. Of course, all of that is still up to be determined, but we'll see. Yeah, at least the governors are doing something. And I think this is one of the nice things about our system is that we have different jurisdictions. We have overlapping jurisdictions. If the feds don't want to act, all right, we can do some stuff locally. So we'll see where that goes. Now, all right, the border's continuing to be a mess. Makes my heart churn. Let's take a look at some questions. We've got NY Renal MD in the house. Says, I feel your pain. 120 in Palm Springs on Sunday. Today's a chilly 107. So, Doc, I can't believe you're in Palm Springs then. I saw that, actually. I saw that because I've been to Palm Springs several times, drive through there all the time when I go out to Orange County. And it is typically not 120 degrees. So the fact that Palm Springs was sort of hotter than Phoenix was a weird thing. I'm thinking, wow, I thought we were melting here, but apparently we're not. Palm Springs is worse. We've got Want to Know says, for Kamala to solve the border crisis, why doesn't she try going to the White House? Do you think the government of Texas and Arizona are going to build a wall? Hot for construction? Can they use leftover materials? How does the Fed land ownership work? Or is this just nice talk? Florida, give them officers and help. So you got a lot of questions in there, Want to Know. And I love that because you just sort of stack them all in there. Candidly, I think that a lot of this is sort of political posturing. I mean, I think it's nice that they're calling attention to these issues. I think that it's nice that the governor is sort of making a big stink about these in different parts of the country because it is a problem. I don't know. I've never lived anywhere but Arizona. I lived in Mexico for 3 months, but that's about it. But I don't know what the border feels like if you live in Washington or Oregon, or what it feels like if you live in Ohio, right? Or someplace on the East Coast. I don't know what it feels like, right? Because you're so far removed from it. But when you're here on the border, it's sort of like the biggest issue. It's kind of been one of the biggest issues my entire life. And I just don't know. I think the problem is sort of bigger than any one state or even an amalgamation of states. I would like to see the states absolutely claw some power back from the federal government. It's not the federal government's to begin with. And the states have just kind of been like, well, we want that money though. So, I guess we'll do those awful things that inhibit people's freedom and liberties in exchange for that money. We love that government money down here at the state level. But if we can sort of, extricate ourselves from that and just say, no, we're going to be more self-sufficient, keep all of that. We're not following your rules. And if you want to enforce your rules, come and enforce them. Just like what's happening out of Missouri. It says, no, if you're going to pass federal firearm legislation, you got to enforce it. We're not enforcing your garbage laws here in our state. We're not going to use state resources to do it. And so, I think with the border, it's going to be something similar to that. You're going to have a bunch of states that want to solve it, but it really is kind of a federal issue. It's the federal border. They have carved out some very, very strong jurisdictional trappings that make sure that they maintain control of that. So I'm not sure that it's going to go anywhere, but it is certainly calling attention to it. So we'll see. We got Sharon Quidney's here in the House, says, how many people are going to have to die before these people admit they made a mistake and abandon their commitment to Trump derangement syndrome? That's a great point, right? It's a great point, Sharon. Gosh, that's such a good point. So we're sort of seeing this, right? We can talk about it in the context of the border. We can say, listen, I know you're mad at Donald Trump. I know that you think that he's a racist bigot and all of those things, but these policies actually reduced people who wanted to cross the border. Okay. And this is a big problem, as we know, because we've got a bunch of kids in cages. You said you were mad about the kids in cages. You got a lot more of them now. So maybe we should kind of just, look, I know, just say mea culpa. Let's go back a little bit. Let's say, hey, Donald Trump was wrong on everything, but he kind of had that one right. Or just fake it even, just sort of modify it a little bit and get Brian Stelter out there and he'll come in, he'll sell whatever, whatever you do. So that's fine. Just do it, because we don't want to see more people killing themselves, getting raped, being trafficked, being assaulted, being robbed, being murdered on the journey up here. Don't want to see that. So do whatever you need to do to save face, but let's have some policy changes rather than speeches down in the Northern Triangle countries, as she likes to call them. So, okay, dog whistles in the House says, and before I move on, Sharon, because the other reason your point is so astute is because this is also happening with COVID, right? It's also happening with a lot of the other drugs out there that are now sort of banned. You can't even say them on any of these platforms, lest you get a strike and be removed from the platform, as Brett Weinstein is going through right now with other doctors and clinicians who know more about this than I would gather some of the YouTube censors do. But what do I know? Maybe they know more than all of us. But let's say this. Let's say, had they maybe not had so much of that Trump derangement syndrome, like where everything he says, they have to pick the opposite, which I've always criticized. I've always said that people who just bundle their opinions, they're kind of doing a disservice to themselves. If every time Joe Biden opens his mouth, I go, that's kind of a disservice. Sometimes he says some things and does some things. I can go, okay, it's a pretty good point there, Joe. Appreciate that, right? Let's sort of take the good and use our minds when we're actually analyzing these politicians, rather than bundling ourselves into one particular ideology. But what happened with the COVID stuff, Trump comes out, says it came from China. Everybody in the medical establishment says, no, it didn't, you racist. And you go, what? Maybe it did. Can we have a conversation about this? So how many people died as a result of that? How many people died by not mentioning these other pharmaceuticals that may or may not have some therapeutic effects, or at least are worth discussing and allowing people to make their own decision based on their own risk management analysis? Didn't even do any of that. Now, because we can't actually enact border policies that make sense logically, because the border itself has been politicized. If our goal is to, hey, let's stop people coming across the border so that they don't kill themselves. Maybe there's a way to do that, but we can't get there because both sides are politicizing it to the point where nothing will get done. And now it's just patently obvious to me that there was a lower number when Trump was in there. There were policies that were one way. They changed. Numbers are dramatically higher. The only thing I can attribute that to, change in the administration. All right, we've got, and listen, and it's not just me. I know I keep moving on here, but it's not just me. These other, presidents, I think the president of Mexico said, yeah, no, the Biden administration has been basically terrible on immigration. Their messaging is way off. They told us borders are open. Now they're telling us it's not open. So they don't know what they're doing. Dog Whistle says, if illegal aliens go to ICE and say they have been subject to sex trafficking or severe labor trafficking, they have a right to stay in the U.S. on visas and get permanent residence. All right, so I can't speak to that. I don't do immigration law, and I know that immigration is sort of in flux right now. I think even people who do immigration law are dealing with the changes because there are so many of them happening quickly. But I'm sure that there are certain steps to take that give you a higher likelihood of remaining in the U.S. because that's just how the law works. We got 3 girlies in the House says they have people from the U.S. that are helping these people with rideshare companies, something like $1,000 a trip. Oh my gosh. They just caught 2 U.S. Army soldiers transporting illegal immigrants across the border. These people, man, they're just getting exploited. It makes me sick. It makes me so mad. These people cramming themselves in cargo containers. It's the worst. Sharon Quinney says, this is an atrocity, a humanitarian crisis, the like of which we haven't seen, I don't think, for decades. It's right on our border. I mean, look, I've grown up in Arizona. I've seen a lot of these types of pictures. Typically kind of not what we're seeing now, right? We're getting notifications here in Arizona that our local governments are sort of contracting with the feds, and we've got I got a new notice that the city of Scottsdale now is doing something with that. They're trying to find facilities to house people. So all of this is kind of new, and we're starting to see a higher uptick of this stuff. And 180,000 people, 300%, and the whole thing is absolutely exacerbating. It's getting worse, and at this stage, it's like, man, I've been seeing pictures like this for like 30 years. What the hell is going on here? Why is this continuing to happen? And all right, I got to get going on this. It's a great question. I could rant all day about it. We've got next up, Soledad Viking says, as you know so well, this U-Haul transportation is not new. Yeah, every day they come in similar circumstances, truly devastating loss of life. And yes, the present administration is increasing the flow and not disincentivizing this. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's not new. They have been coming. I've seen people, folks. I have seen images of people. You can find this stuff on the internet. It's not anything new, but people who actually will cram themselves into compartments in a car. And I'm talking about like take the dashboard off the car and put a kid in there and then put the dashboard back on. And the Border Patrol, pulls a car out and starts pulling panels off. And you've got people just sort of, stuffed into vehicles and stuff. It's awful. It's really horrendous. And, this type of stuff, the government wants to sort of handhold on everything, and then they do stuff like this that is actually causing people to die, like in real time. It makes my stomach churn. All right, Sharon Quidney says, the mental health and addiction crisis is equally distressing. Another problem is that folks are making more money from not working than they would if they were employed. When will this insanity end? It's a good question. I don't know, Sharon. Probably not anytime soon. Farmer's daughter says, hey, good evening. Good evening to you, Farmer. We got, aren't there federal laws in place already and Trump was adhering to them? While surprised, Biden is ignoring them because orange man bad and voters. Yeah, it's like there are all sorts of federal laws, right? But it's about the application and it's about the enforcement. And then we have one administration, to the next where everything becomes politicized. And you're just going, man, it's like, it's frustrating. All right. It's Ed says, if America is so racist and such a deplorable place, according to the left, then why are people risking their lives to come here by the hundreds of thousands? This is a great question. I've always had this question too. It's like, if this country is such a rotten hellhole, why do people all across the world sort of, look to America and say, that's kind of a nice place to live. That's kind of the lifestyle that I would like to live with freedom and opportunity. And look, I say this all the time, but I think that a lot of the people who are not from America are the people that really value what America is and what it's supposed to be. I got you look around society, a lot of Americans are very just, very fat and happy. Just their life is so good that they're just looking for things to complain about. We have to kind of go and find racism, right? Go find it. Everything is racist. That interaction, I bought that coffee from you. You said, you're welcome. That's a racist thing. I got to go find it. Because everything's mostly pretty good, right? I go home, turn my Netflix on, I don't even have to work. I get a check from the government. Things are pretty good. So I got to go and make something up to complain about. And I'm not saying that racist is made up. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that we're sort of creating it in areas where all of us are going, what? That's a race? What are you talking about? We're living in a society where Martin Luther King said, think about things this way. And we're doing the exact opposite now today. So people are having a difficult time dissecting all of that. All right, next up, we got Pinky says, are the illegals filled with starry-eyed dreams of freedom that are not true? I don't know, I guess. I don't know. Well, I don't think so, because Kamala Harris told them, do not come. So apparently they didn't listen. Doctors in the House, NY Renal MD says, if people did not hire them, they wouldn't come. Stimulus entitlements lead to citizens staying at home. This caused the demand for workers. Yeah, I think that there are multiple variables here. Okay, if Kamala Harris wants to go down there and say it's climate change or it's the homicide capital of the world or it's economic, lack of economic opportunities, sure, I think all those things probably have a factor. Definitely, right? We talk about pushing and pulling. So you've got some factors that are local to whatever country we're talking about. Let's say Guatemala, where Kamala Harris just was. She says there are certain situations that are pushing people out of the country. Okay, and so she wants to go fix those things. If she can turn, El Salvador into, not the homicide capital of the world anymore because she's magical. If she can go and fix their economy because she's magical, go donate $10 million to whatever, right? If she can solve those problems, then the theory is that those don't push people out of the country into the United States. If you look at it from the other perspective, it's about pulling. Well, what if you create an incentive in the United States that encourages people, that incentivizes them to sort of be pulled into the country, which I think is exactly what's happening right now. So if you have a push situation where there's pressure in one country and those people have a place to go, if they want to take off from the airport and land somewhere else, and that's a good opportunity for them, it makes sense because the equation is full. If you say, on the other side, if we eliminate the pull and they still have a push there, well, yeah, that certainly is a situation where you might say, well, there's a humanitarian crisis and we have an obligation to help those people. Okay. And in my philosophy, in my school of thought is, okay, let's help them help themselves rather than creating a pressure cooker escape valve where people can just pick up and leave, right? Rather than creating a situation where they got to hold their own public officials accountable, where they have to go and sort of, fix their own country to some extent. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of feedback on that. America's an evil empire and we go out there and we take advantage of all these people and so on and so forth. That's a whole separate conversation. My point here is that what the United States is doing is it's incentivizing people to leave their countries and it's sort of promising them a better life by virtue of the policy changes. And so when we start to see 200,000 people flooding the borders, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, especially this administration. And their solution to this is not to eliminate the pull. It's to go down there and tell them, don't act upon the push. Don't come. She goes down there and says, hey, your situation's terrible. Are you going to fix it? Are you going to fix those underlying root causes there, Kamala Harris? The global warming and all of the economic problems and the crime and the corrupt politicians and the bribery. And you're going to fix all of that? No? Then why are you telling us not to come? Because your policies still say we're welcome. She says, do not come and expects that to be a solution. It's not a solution. All right. We got NY says, I do not quite understand why states lack standing to sue the federal government for not enforcing border laws. Well, it's because the courts just kind of do whatever they want, really. I mean, they find standing when they want to hear the case. They find a lack of standing when they don't want to hear the case because the courts can be a mess. And if the courts are a mess, you certainly don't want to be alone as you're going through that. You need a law firm to help you. R&R Law Group is primed and ready to go in that journey. So we can help people with all sorts of criminal charges, things like drug charges, felony charges, traffic tickets, DUI charges, everything and anything in between. Anytime you're in trouble with the law, we are the firm to call. Our phone number is down here, 480-787-0394, or you can click that QR code to head on over to our website. And if you don't need excellent legal representation in the state of Arizona, you might need some education about other things like law enforcement interaction training. So for example, here is a free, this is not free. This is free, by the way, if you are a Locals subscriber. So we have promo codes for law enforcement interaction training and in fact, existence systems. If you don't want to join our community, I get that, no problem. Follow me over here, gumroad.com/Robert Gruller, or you can just purchase independently any one of these programs. If you're a lawyer, check out the Legal Mastermind. We've got a call coming up soon there as well. Appreciate all the love and support there. So thank you for that. Okay.